Hello, everybody. My name is Angela, and I love TarotTube. TarotTube has really given me a sense of community that I never had before, and I love watching everybody's deck flip throughs and tarot hauls and all those good things. But one thing that I've really been thinking about lately, especially the last few years, is what am I really looking for in a deck collection? Because I know that from watching other people's videos and talking to other people and reading posts on Discord and all of the different groups, my deck collection is nowhere even remotely close to the size of a lot of people's, and I'm cool with that. I actually like the idea of a curated collection. But then I started really thinking about, as I was seeing decks that I thought might be cool in my collection, like, where would these fit? Like, what am I going to use them for? Are they going to have a purpose? So I figured I would introduce everybody to my deck collection, not the whole thing, but the heavy hitters, and how they work for me and why they were chosen and kind of what kind of little niche they fill in my world, my rich, rich inner life. So it's funny, I was watching a video that Don Michelle and Lisa Pepez recorded on tarot practices about personifying decks. And yes, I do that, and I take it to a whole nother level. So let's get started. I think the first deck I'm going to show is my mom deck. It's the deck that when I wish I could still talk to my mom, I can't because she's no longer with us. But this is the one I pull out. It could also be a grandma deck, but it's really my mom. It's the Cozy Witch Tarot. And everybody has seen this deck, I'm sure, but let's zoom in a little bit. The little sayings at the bottom really just remind me of things that my mom would have said to me if there were issues that, I took to her. So, on this King of Cups, compose yourself before giving a response, which kind of makes me think about times when she, may have said something like, just because you can say something doesn't mean you should. This Four of Swords is epic. The lady having period pains. I mean, really, come on. And then this one, the Ten of Pentacles. This is totally my life. All of the crazy cats on my wraparound porch, and I can just see my mom looking out the window and saying, it's okay that this is your reality. Family is what you want it to be. And the little message at the bottom says having it all looks different to everyone. Love that. So that would be my mom deck. As I'm getting ready to transition to the next one to show you guys, I do want to just throw some serious props to tarot tubers. I don't know how you guys do it. I have the biggest mess known to mankind on my desk right now, and it might be giving me a little bit of anxiety, but I'll deal with it. So the next one is my dad deck. The reason this is my dad deck is probably because it's pretty straight and to the point. I get a lot of masculine energy from this deck. Everybody knows this one too, I'm sure. It's Tarot of the Abyss. It's a mass market. I love this deck. It's such a clear reader, and it feels very practical to me. Here's your Four of Cups. This card, I made sure this one was close to the top so I could show it. This is the Ten of Wands. Not that it has anything to do with the traditional meaning of the Ten of Wands, but when I see this card out of this deck, I always think of my dad. He was a coal miner, and it almost looks like this figure is carrying, a bunch of branches, but whatever, kind of walking out of the tunnel of a coal mine. So I always think of my dad. I'm not sure what kind of hat that he's wearing there either, but it makes me think of Daddy, who is still with me, and I can still talk to, thankfully. Lots of these things. It's just, if you want practical, no nonsense, straightforward answers, go to Dad or go to this deck. I have upside down cards. Sorry if that's giving anybody bad juju vibes. It happens. So that was my dad deck. Next up is one of my favorites. I think everybody probably knows most of my decks, honestly. This one is the Moonchild, the OG old school Moonchild, not the new Shadow Edition. I do have that one too, and I absolutely love it. But this deck for me is my great-grandparents, Alex and Blanche. I've been doing a lot of ancestor work lately, the last year or so, And there's a strong moon energy that goes back at least 4 generations on one side of the family. It does go back toward Alex and Blanche, and I have a feeling that there was probably some Flapper Girl energy in the early 1900s going on in there. So this deck just kind of makes me think of them. It is very mystical, and what I like, some of the things on some of these cards, you can see, you get these strong lines. It reminds me of like Art Deco kind of artwork, and it just, when I see these images and the messages that I get from these guys are so clear. And now that I think about it, that moon line ran through their branch of the family, and this is the moon child. That never really struck a chord till right now, but yeah. This is totally my great-grandparents on my mom's side. Alex and Blanche. Love those guys. Never met them, but I feel like I know them. Ancestor work can get really, really interesting sometimes, I'll tell you. So that was my great-grandma and great-grandpa mystical, interesting, eccentric deck. I have notes over here because I know I tend to ramble. So next up, okay, so this one, so this is my deck collection, but this is actually my deck community, okay? So let me show you what deck it is. You guys all know this one probably. Woodland Wardens by Jessica Rue. It's mass market. I've had this forever. It's actually an oracle, not a tarot. This deck for me, I love this deck so much. It's so much fun to play with. This deck for me feels like the lovely neighbor next door who has an unmanicured, beautiful garden just bursting forth with like native plants, right? And she always has like a hoodie or some kind of a cardigan with pockets on, and she helps me take care of all the feral cats in the neighborhood. Just so you know, that's not actually a real person, but for the sake of my tarot collection and this community and the way that I personify my decks, she may as well be. I don't know what her name would be. I should really come up with that. But yeah, this deck just gives me that energy of the lovely little lady next door. Don't know how old she is, honestly, but she helps me take care of feral cats, and she has a native garden that doesn't look like a golf course, so I love her for that. Up next, let's see who else wants to talk to us today. Oh, okay, up next, this was actually my very first indie deck. I don't know, this one might be out of print, and not everyone might know this one. I haven't seen it around a lot. It's the Hollow Valley Tarot. I don't even know where I came to know about this deck, but for the longest time, it was the primary one that I worked with. It's not the easiest one to read with, but in my community, in my tarot community, this one would be, shout out to Portlandia, the super feminist bookstore owner who always tells me to stand in my power. So, love this deck. It has lots of little symbols. It doesn't have the traditional RWS images that you're used to seeing, so it took me a while to read with this one, but once I did, it's a gut puncher. You can see the dragons here. There's lots of, you know, feminine figures with swords and lots of feathers and keys, and there's another lady with a sword and lots of fire, and I love the books. You know, she's a bookstore owner after all, who doesn't really exist, but that's okay. The arrows and bows and arrows, more swords, black cats, always love those. So yeah, this deck kind of kept me in check for a lot of years. Love it. I don't use it nearly as much anymore, but I don't think I'll ever rehome it. I love this deck. Next up, my community of rich inner life friends is in no specific order, just so you know, but this next deck is probably another one that everybody knows. It's the Wild Unknown Archetypes by Kim Kranz, another oracle, mass market. This one's been around everywhere. So for me, this one is the college professor from Brooklyn who answers every question with a really poorly handwritten list of references that you need to go to the library and look up, and you go down a wild goose chase to try and find the answers, and you end up with more questions. Now, this person actually did exist back when I went to college, which was a really long time ago, to the point where we had to go to the card catalog, okay? He sent me with handwritten lists to the card catalog. If he knew that our college library did not have the books he was sending me to look for, he would go through his multi-layer, thick personal archive in his office and send me out in a very much of a 10 of 1 situation. My handful of books trying to trek across campus. Loved that guy. Yeah, this just feels like all the different threads he would send me to chase after to find the answer to things that I would ask him about. And you know what's funny? So I was an English major, so I tend to be a little eccentric anyway. T.S. Eliot is one of my favorites of all time, and the many, many pages of notes at the end of The Wasteland that he published along with the poem actually act a lot like that, like the riddle. You go down trying to find the answers to things, and it just leads you to more questions. Okay, up next we have, next in my community is the favorite aunt who, when you were a child, put extra marshmallows in your hot chocolate. This is the Dark Days Tarot, by the way. It's not that rare. I think a lot of people have it. But this aunt, she always put extra marshmallows. Aunt, sorry, I'm Southern. It kind of goes both ways. But she always put extra marshmallows in your hot chocolate when you were a kid. And then at the stroke of midnight on your 21st birthday, she replaced the marshmallows with a shot of bourbon. And she's great. Sometimes she feels like an older sister. Sometimes they're the same person. Who knows? I absolutely love this deck. This deck is pretty sassy. I use it a lot when, again, this could be one of my rage decks, Dawn Michelle. I have to say, when I'm irritated with people and when I want to complain about people, I kind of go to this deck and feel like I'm spilling the tea with my aunt. So, love this deck. This aunt, who may or may not exist, probably shops at the bookstore owned by the lady that inspired the Hollow Valley. So, yeah. This is good stuff. It's a really sassy deck. It has a lot of personality. It's pretty blunt. But, sometimes when I'm reading with this one anyway, I can't speak for others, I feel like I'm like sitting down to a glass of wine or something with besties or that eccentric aunt. I absolutely love this deck. If you don't have it, I highly recommend that you check it out because it's pretty cool. And I'm a sucker for black and white decks, so bonus. Let's see who else lives in my village. Oh, this is a good one. Okay. Another, I don't know if this one's indie or mass market, actually. It's the Way Home Tarot. This one is the slightly older brother who has a practical job, and he probably has a degree in like IT or business or something, and he just is really to the point and really, grounded in earth and does not speak the language of woo at all. Yeah, he's great, but he does love us. He's there for us when we need him, and sometimes after we've had a visit and we walk out the door, I know he's just turning his head and going, bless his heart. So yeah, this is the Big Brother deck. Quick, to the point, not a whole lot of woo. Yeah, sorry for the upside down cards again. It happens in my world. I don't read reversed cards, but because of the way I shuffle, yeah, they end up that way. And it is what it is. Okay, so next up, let's do this one. So this one is newer to my collection. I think a lot of us know this maker. It's Layla and Olive Viola Luxumbra. It's the newest tarot deck. This one for me, I've gotten to know it pretty quickly. I thought it would take some time, but I'm actually really loving this one. This one for me is my paternal great-grandmother. She always had on an apron, and she always had a smile. She was the last generation to live off the land, and she lived in a a house that her husband built in deep in a dark mountain holler. If y'all don't know what that is, visit the Appalachian Mountains. You'll find out pretty quick. She was great. She was always lovely. She put out an amazing breakfast spread. She loved her family fiercely. She was very tied to the land. She was also very tied to her front porch and her copper spittoon. We'll just leave it there. Bless her heart. She was great. And I know my siblings and I, when we would visit her, when we were really, really little, we did get to meet her while we were very young. And I think all of us kind of thought that secretly she was a good witch, but she was from a time so far back that the word witch didn't really have a place, and so she didn't know she was one, but we think she was one, but definitely a good one. Yeah, Viola Luxumbra is kind of her energy for me. Love it. I've got such a mess on this desk, you guys. Okay, up next. This is... I'm out of order. My notes don't even make sense anymore, so we'll just roll. This would be my paternal grandfather, who had a hard outer shell, a very, very hard outer shell. I'm actually going to zoom in on this very first card. This is, I don't have the box for it because I have it in a separate box. This is the Terra Volatile. Very powerful deck. It took me quite a while to get up the nerve to even try working with this deck, but it reminds me of my paternal grandpa. He was a hard man, not a mean man, but he was a hard man. He had that outer shell. He had seen things and been through things in his day, you know, and I feel like, so when I've done my ancestor work, that's another story. He did not come up as the King of Swords, but this card from this deck, the King of Swords, always reminds me of him, because if you look at this figure, look, he's got that scar on his face, and he's just looking straight at you. He's also missing an eye, I think. You know, he's been through things. He's seen some stuff. And he lived through it, and he's not warm and fuzzy, but he's awesome, and you got mad respect for the guy. The artwork on this deck, I absolutely love it. I'm sorry again for all the reversed cards. It's heavy. It is heavy. Oh my goodness. Okay, so... the universe with Shiva. If I keep making videos, I might one day do an episode on how I do deity work and the kind of deity work that I do. Shiva is always there. So anytime that I see a deck with Shiva, it's going to come into my collection, and that's actually why I have this card, which is one of the alternate cards actually, is why I bought this deck. So, wow, I didn't realize it was going to be one of the ones I was going to find. That kind of threw me off kilter a little bit. Yeah, this deck is it's a lot, but it's beautiful, and it gives you a whole lot to think about. I am so sorry for flipping these cards, guys. I'll try to do better in the future. Yeah, I think a lot of us know this deck. It is absolutely stunning, but it's so good. And it's so deep that it can be intimidating. But it totally reminds me, in that heaviness and in that intimidation, I think, it reminds me of my paternal great-grandpa, who was an amazing fella. I wish I could have known him better, but yeah. Who's up next? Okay, so now, next up we have... this is probably this is by far my most used deck, and I think it's one that everybody knows. Again, I don't have the box. I have it in its own box. But this is the Pagan Otherworlds by Usi. I am madly in love with this deck. When it comes to my community, let's go ahead and go through that verse. So in my community, this would be the village elder, whose age transcends time. And, you know, sometimes he's there and you can see him, and sometimes he's not, and he's more of a village myth, and we don't know if he really exists, but we all talk about him like he is. And yeah, he's a lot. He speaks in his own language. He speaks in metaphors. He's the, you know, the village shaman elder, and he always has a story. He always has a story to back up everything. And it's stories from all over the world. So you wonder, how does he know all of this? I don't know. But anyway, this deck is fierce for me. It does not, this is very much a pretty traditional deck. I mean, a lot of people have it. It's, you know, it could be a traditional clear reader, honestly, but for me, this one speaks in its own language. A lot like that village elder, if he were a real thing, if he were a real guy. Maybe he is on some level, I don't know. But this one speaks to me in images, like, I wish I could. So there was one time I was drawing with this deck, and I got the Three of Wands, you know, the Three of Wands. It's about kind of watching your ships come in, right, after you've done strategic planning, things like that. There's other ways you can look at that too, but for me, it was like a literal message from someone or something saying, meet me on a mountain clearing. I was like, what? And I had no idea. I'd never had that experience with the tarot before. I don't. No, but a few weeks later, I went hiking and randomly came across a tree with 3 trunks. I took pictures of it. Yeah, this deck is a lot. And I use it a lot. It is probably, this is the over my dead body, will you ever take this deck in my collection. I love it so fiercely. Yeah. It doesn't feel pagan to me, though. It's called the Pagan Otherworlds, right? And I can see where the artwork would definitely suggest that. But for me, it feels more like ancient knowledge, which is, you know, why I feel like it's the village elder. And I love that guy. He's great. I should go seek out a guy to be my village elder, right? Okay, I have 2 more decks out here that I don't have any notes on. These are pretty new to my collection, and I don't even have them out of the boxes very well yet. The first one, it's also from Usi. I actually treated myself to 2 more decks by them because I love the Pagan Otherworlds so fiercely. And I've had that one for a while, but I decided to get myself these 2. So the first one is the Super Oracle. These 2 in my community fit together. Like I think they kind of embody the same energy, the same kind of persona. And I think it's the me a few decades from now. I think these decks are what I'm going to be a few decades from now. And that's going to be, you know, the crazy lady, the feral human who has no social skills, and she lives in a haunted house on the edge of the forest or on the side of the mountain or something like that, and she has all the feral cats that hang out around her house. Yeah. Never has her hair done, scares the children away even though she's really not a bad person. Yeah, I'm so sorry, guys. I'm going to do better about this in the future. But yeah, this deck, it's the Oracle deck by Usi. It's very deep. I mean, this is Psyche. Yeah, look at those eyes. It's so esoteric and it's so riddle-ish, but I mean, primordial with this mountain. I'm very tied to mountains on a lot of levels. I grew up in the mountains, moved away for a long time, and when I moved back, the second I saw the first peak in my, you know, through my windshield, my soul just whispered thank you. I mean, I felt like I came back to life. It was amazing. Yeah. So these are just really esoteric, really kind of, they feel feral to me. I don't even know what else to say. They feel like, you know, that untamed, undomesticated messages from something or somewhere, I don't know. So yeah, this will totally be me in a few decades. I think it might be a little bit already. But along with those is this is the circular, I don't even know what it's called, the circular pagan playing cards by Usi. I thought these would be fun to kind of throw down with Oracle when I want something a little more, to read a little bit more intuitively. I mean, not that the rest of these decks don't do that, but I absolutely love these. This one is the Page of Cups. You've got the Queen of Pentacles here, Queen of Wands. Can't believe these are in any kind of order. The Queen of Cups, Then your spades, you get into the wands. Oh, look at this king of, he's got to be pentacles. I mean, I love these, and what's great about them is just the coloring. My lighting is horrible, guys. But they look very much hand-painted, even though I'm sure they're not. I know they're not. But it just feels like something that crazy lady on the edge of the village would kind of have and throw around when she couldn't find her other deck because she had too many cans of cat food separated for the village ferals for dinner that day. So, oh, this one also has planet cards, which is pretty cool. I like that. I've already used these a few times. Oh, look, there's an upside down one. I've used these a few times together with that Supra already, and it's pretty fierce. So, yeah, this will be my future self. There's a black card for the new moons. There are moon faces in here, too, which is pretty neat. So, anyway, yay. And look how cool the box is. I mean, does this not just look luxe? This is a very luxurious box. Come on. So yeah, that is my community. That is how I think about my decks. I really do think about them as having personalities and being like family. And, you know, if I have something I need to talk about or ask a question about, I think, do I want to talk to the paternal grandpa with the hard outer shell, or do I want to go talk to my aunt who's going to put a shot of, you know, bourbon in my hot chocolate? Who do I want to talk to? Is this maybe something I want to ask my brother about with his business degree? Who knows? Do I want to talk to that village elder who may or may not exist on this realm of, of existence? I don't know. I'm a little bit eccentric, obviously. I am descended, after all, from my grandparents who have that strong moon energy, and the other great-grandma who we swear is a good witch before the term of witch existed. That's an exaggeration, guys. I hope you know that. Anyway. It's good hanging out with you. I don't know if I'll make more videos. I get really rambly. I did actually pull out some fluorite to put on my table to try and keep me focused. It probably didn't do a very good job. Might need to smoke cleanse that and see if I can get it talking to me again. But I appreciate any of you who actually listened through this hot mess of a video, and maybe one day I'll make more. Who knows? Anyway, thank you. Have fun. Go talk to your cards and build your deck family. Bye-bye.